And that's basically what I was kind of getting at before. Just because you could breathe better doesn't mean anything. You got to do something with it. And this is all about more volume.
Welcome to PricePlow.
What's going on, PricePlow Nation and endurance athletes worldwide? This is Mike Roberto, founder of PricePlow, a tech and media company that brings you all sorts of informational content, supplement, news, reviews, interviews, diet research, and the works. And today, we're going to talk about mushrooms. Whoa, this is the old formula. Let's try it again. Today, we're going to talk about mushrooms. That's right, I got the new Xtend Elite featuring compound solutions is PeakO2. Now, both of these formulas actually contain 2 grams of PeakO2, and that's the ingredient we're going to be focusing on in this video. This is going to be a bit more of a storytelling, informational video, and a little bit less of a review, because as you can see, I haven't even opened up these 2 new tubs. So we're going to do a taste testing and review it. Now, these 2 tubs were sent by Compound Solutions, the company that manufactures, the company that sells PeakO2, which is the mushroom blend that is meant to increase your VO2 max and generally increase your endurance. But these 2 tubs were then sent. These are the new formula that came out since then, and they've been hyping it. This is Xtend Elite formula. And so Xtend, of course, is the brand that was acquired about 1.5 years ago or so by Nutrabolt, the company that owns Cellucor, and they purchased them from Scivation. So you can see on the older tub it says Scivation Xtend Elite, and now they've rebranded everything to just Xtend. They came out with the Xtend Pro Protein, Xtend Carbonated, and what we have here is Xtend Elite. This is meant more towards endurance athletes, kind of like my former self. I'm not doing any triathlon races right now, but I'm not against getting back in the water at least. And so anyway, in these supplements, the big add-on is 2 grams of the PeakO2 mushroom extract, and that's what Compound Solutions wants to talk about today. So we're going to go a little bit into the story there and get into some of the individual parts of it, but mostly what the new research is stating on PeakO2, because we now have a second new study about it. Now you'll notice that these tubs are a little bit smaller. They do come in 20 and 30 serving sizes. So I have the 20 serving tubs here, and you gotta note the shirt that was sent from Xtend as well behind me. The Texas edition gets all the good stuff. Also, everything with the Xtend name on it is gonna have 7 grams of branched chain amino acids in a 2 to 1 to 1 leucine to isoleucine to valine ratio. And it's no different here, no different here, no different here, or even here. So that's always going to be consistent. The next thing we want to do is, let's do a taste test. We're going to do all 4 of these flavors, kind of comparing the old versus the new, because the old formula did have a couple of things that, I don't know, maybe are more difficult to flavor. And these companies are, of course, getting better at flavoring things, but one of them was ashwagandha, and it wasn't a huge dose, but it's a little bit tougher. So I'm wondering, on top of the mushrooms, is it going to be a little bit better tasting with this one? And that's what we hope for. We always hope for improvements. Now, the one thing I need to go way back, if you check out our original review, the first supplement that ever contained PeakO2 inside was actually Scivation Xtend Perform. So Xtend Elite replaced that, but Xtend Perform was the original. We did a review way back in the day. So I'll talk about some of my anecdotal effects that I had with it. I was swimming a lot at the time, and I noticed it big time. Big fan of that, but yeah, definitely had like a bit of that mushroom herby flavor, and you're gonna get a little bit of that, but they've gotten so much better with it over time. So I'm really excited to see kind of how the progression has gone. Let's do a scoop weigh out on the new tubs to make sure that we are getting our 18 grams in, and don't want to overdo it, don't want to waste any money doing that, but there are benefits to getting even more of the PeakO2 in, but at like crazy doses. But if you have the time to go for about a month or 2 weeks even, then you'll be fine at the 2 grams per day. But even at 1 gram a day over the course of time, it looks like you're going to be able to do just fine. So there might be like a cumulative time-based effect. Anyway, let's get to the taste testing, and let's do a scoop weigh out first. All right, there's no way around this. It smells a bit like an earthy mushroom with sweetener on top. Pretty big scoop though, 18 grams what we're going for. I teared it out. That is a 29.6 cc scooper. Now this is a real fluffy powder. Yeah, you can see that. So I'm not sure how tight to pack it. So I just go for a standard kind of packing, level it off. And it's a little heavy, so go a little bit light, but we are right at the 10% markage. And a little light. Okay, so we'll get there. Anyway, I'm gonna measure out the 4 different scoops at 18 grams. The two new formulas are 18 grams. The old formula was just a slight bit heavier at 19.5 grams. I'll get that set up and we'll be back. All right, so we saw the weigh out. One thing I forgot to mention are the flavors themselves. So in the new formula, we have sour gummy flavor and citrus passion fruit. Whereas in the old formula, we had sour gummy flavor. So we'll be comparing those head to head. And instead of citrus passion fruit, though, we had Island Punch Fusion. So that's going to be a little bit different. Now, we're going to start with the 2 sour gummies. And so I have my trusty bomb for the new formula, and I have the trusty torpedo for the old formula. So let's have at it with the sour gummies. There's my new formula and the bomb. Old formula. Now what's interesting about the old formula is like the powder actually has a little bit of color to it. They don't have that anymore, so maybe they're using a little bit less color. We'll find out. Gotta start with the old formula because that's the original. All right, kind of what you expect. You got a little bit of red, and then you're gonna have like the earth tones coming in from the PeakO2 extract, but it mixes perfectly fine. Oh, okay. That's definitely, yeah, this one almost tastes like a fruit punch to me instead of a sour gummy. A bit of tartness. It's definitely way better than the original Xtend Perform. They've gotten, they got better and better over time. The aftertaste is there is a touch of mushroom in here. There's no way around it, I don't think. Overall, I'm enjoying this. I'd say good taste. Aftertaste could have been worked on. Hopefully they did work on it, because now we're going with the new formula. Oh, they're going green in here. Jeez. We gotta look at this tub here. What are the colors? It's gotta be blue number 1. Yeah, okay, yellow number 5 and blue number 1. Woo! Well, Xtend got away from doing the colors in the cans, especially with the Cellucor C4 in a can. They're keeping them in the powders though, because hey, the colors do taste better apparently. I smell the mushroom still. And now, oh, so yeah, supposed to use 10 to 14 ounces of water, and we went right down the middle with 12 here. I gotta be honest, I do like the old one a little bit better. The old one's a little bit more sour. I like that sourness. I'm gonna try it right out of the cup. All right, Xtend, I'm gonna be honest. You got to up the flavor system a little bit more on the sour gummy, especially because you remove the ashwagandha. That doesn't mean you have to remove all the tartness and the power and the potency of the flavor. So yeah, this green one, and I'm not letting the color mess me up or nothing. I'm telling you, this green one is just not as good as the old formula. It's not bad. Everyone's got to realize that when you're going with a PeakO2 based supplement, there's going to be an off note. I don't know if anyone's really massed it completely, and if they have, then they've like overwhelmed it with flavor system and sucralose. But I still always taste it a little bit. Okay, now it's time to go with the old school Island Punch Fusion flavor, and that's gonna be in my missile. And then in the bullet, we're gonna get the new flavor, which is the citrus passion fruit. Sounds really good. All right, old flavor first. New flavor. Whoa! Are they serious? Oh my! All right, so I don't know if I've had. This looks like they just like threw in straight up just crazy orange, turmeric, beta carotene, every orange color you have in the book here. It smells good though. It smells really good. So this was Island Punch Fusion. That's unique. That's a good, okay, that's who we're standing with here. It almost tastes like a V8 splash or something. You know there's like some veggies or some stuff in here. I think it's beatable. Let's see if we have that kind of color with this new flavor. Okay, new formula. Man, they are not going light on these colors. This is hilarious. Is that, I don't know. Ooh, that's okay. This is my favorite one. This is also unique. All these flavors are going to be unique, especially the PeakO2. So after that, if you're looking at Xtend Elite, I can't even. It's like total hands down citrus passion fruit flavor. What I have here is more passion fruit than citrus, which I like personally. If you follow my this channel, you know that I'm not the most citrus guy, but it's there to add a little bit of slant to the sweetness of the passion fruit. Both of these are really good flavors actually, but I do not really appreciate that they took away a little bit of the potency of the sour gummy in the new formula. That's a fine beverage. It's different. You still have a little bit of PeakO2 in there. I don't smell it, and I really don't taste it that much though. Well done. Now color-wise, we have to look at what's going on here. Just a whole bunch of yellow number 5. They don't have any of the other stuff that I've been mentioning. But yeah, it definitely comes in a little bit strong. If you care, then you're going to be looking elsewhere. You're going to be going with some of the newer canned goods that they have. Or you can mix your own. And so this is good. Might be my favorite tasting PeakO2 based drink I've had so far. Huh. All right, so now that that's done, I'm going to sip through that a little bit throughout the course of this. Let's talk about the ingredients. I'm going to move this stuff out of my way because I know for a fact that these shaker cups are going to get banged over and knocked over. And then we'll be back to talk about the ingredients and what makes this such an interesting formula. And we're going to focus, of course, on the PeakO2 Cordyceps lead blend, Cordyceps Militaris. I'll see you in just a second. All right, so before we get into it, let's start with the anecdotal. Now, I've mentioned this before, but when I train, I use a heart rate monitor. I'm not talking about none of that Fitbit nonsense around the wrist. I'm talking about the real deal, a polar heart rate monitor across my chest. I have this one, or there's straps that go with this one, and I wear this. Pretty old school, basic stuff. But my way of thinking is, first off, I want to know what my actual heart rate is, i.e. what's on my heart. And unfortunately, we don't have a great way of communicating with our bodies. There's no way of getting a notification or an email from your body. But the heart rate is a really, really basic, simplistic way of seeing how hard your body is mechanically working. And I use the numbers there to kind of bounce around between, okay, when I should start my next set, or if I need to recover longer after a heavy deadlift set or something like that. And basically, I kind of try to standardize my workouts around 800 calories burned, whatever that may really be. But I really enjoy that, and it really lets you know if you're not working hard enough, or if something can't get my heart rate over 130, some sort of exercise, and clearly it's either not heavy enough or it's just not a hard exercise, and that's okay for some things, warming your joints up. Anyway, and I've said this many a times on this channel, when I first started using PeakO2 in Scivation Xtend Perform way back when, I was very consistently doing deadlift-based workouts, and I knew, you kind of get to know yourself, your body a lot when you start doing these types of measurements, when you're logging your food and all that. And I was able to determine, it was ridiculous that when I started getting into the PeakO2 based supplements, my heart rate for doing a set of 315 pound deadlifts, sets of 8 to 10 or so, my heart rate would end up 10 points lower every time. Unbelievable. So it's kicked in after 2 to 3 weeks, and I couldn't believe it. And it's been a consistent thing for me. And I do not, for whatever reason, I don't always consistently take PeakO2. I'm always messing with stuff, and then things fall out. But I'm telling you, and we hear a lot of the anecdotal feedback from a lot of our followers on Facebook and Instagram. Same thing happens where they could breathe easier, or heart rate's lower, or just muscles seem to last a little bit longer. For me, it's the heart rate, and it makes me confident that I can do more. Now, that doesn't necessarily equate to gains or anything, but the whole idea is that these are endurance-based gains, where if it is truly a volume play, or if you really need to take your training to the next level, you need more volume, then that's where PeakO2 makes a great case. And given that there don't seem to be many downsides, at least at this dose, except for diminished taste of your products, I think it's a great supplement. So I'm a big fan, but my anecdotal history is basically that I train with this guy around my chest all the time, and when I do use PeakO2 for a couple weeks straight, things just like kind of fly a little bit easier, and I'm a big fan of it, especially when I was doing that in the pool. Now, unfortunately, I bought this to swim with, and this doesn't really work when I'm swimming like hard because it just can't get it tight enough. I don't feel like taping myself down. Anyway, but I kind of notice the easier breathing when I'm swimming, because when I'm swimming, I can do sets of, or I can do a breathing pattern of taking a breath every 5 or 7 strokes when I'm on this stuff, where I usually start at 5 and then move down to 3 when I am not, when I'm regular training. When I'm on PeakO2, I tell you right now, PeakO2 and DMAA both allow me to do sets of 7 or 5 breathing patterns. So that's like a big thing for people who like don't want to be, turning their head over and over and over to take a breath. So that's my anecdotal review. That I am a huge fan of PeakO2. I've said it many times. So here's a good place for me to kind of tell the whole story. But I am a big fan of using a real deal heart rate monitor, and you can start tracking some of this stuff. And if your heart rate ain't getting high enough in a certain exercise, bump up the weights, do a little bit more, or maybe it's just an easy set and you should take it easy on your shoulder for whatever it may be. All right, so now it's time to talk about PeakO2. And the PeakO2 is a blend, and it is a proprietary blend, unfortunately, that Compound Solutions sells. Compound Solutions, based out of Carlsbad, California, run by a gentleman named Matt Titlow, who I hear people have been telling me that he has very similar mannerisms to me. So we got to get him on the podcast, or got to get him on an interview here, and so we could, out awkward each other. So anyway, Compound Solutions, great company. I like a lot of the things they do, but they've recently reinvigorated PeakO2. Now, the main driver in the PeakO2 blend, and it's the one we really should focus on, is Cordyceps Militaris. Now, a lot of people have probably way back, in the earlier 2010s, late, in the 2000s, a lot of people are starting to hear about Cordyceps sinensis. And it was really always a weird situation with this stuff. Going back even further, Cordyceps has always been a part of traditional Chinese medicine. It's kind of like a folk traditional medicine, and it's always been used for tons of different properties: anti-diabetic support, antibacterial support, virility, increased endurance, general health, immune system support. There's all these great things. And going back even further, this whole field of mushroom science is called mycology, and there's mycologists out there who talk about this stuff nonstop, and they study all these different mushrooms, and there's a big belief system behind the idea, and there's research that backs a lot of it up, that mushrooms have many, many, many medicinal properties depending on the type of mushroom, obviously. Some of them are poisonous, some of them are hallucinogenic, and some of them are just great immune system boosters and even endurance boosters. So mushroom science is very interesting topic. I'm not the biggest fan of Joe Rogan, but you do need to find the Paul Stamets episode with Joe Rogan. Paul Stamets being a very famous mycologist. There's some interesting tidbits there. So anyway, mushroom science is really, really interesting, and there's arguments that can be made that basically our entire ecosystem just doesn't happen the way it is right now without the layer of fungus on our earth, without mushrooms. And then there's arguments that humanity doesn't happen without mycology in general either. We thrive and subsist on this ecosystem that is really based, and it's critical that fungi are a part of it. So not all fungals are a bad thing. And there's a lot of research behind a lot of these different traditional medicines. Now, I'm not telling you to go and eat any mushroom that's out there, because obviously there's, like I said, a lot of them are poisonous, but thankfully back in the day in China, they did a lot of that for us, and they figured out which ones are kind of medicinal, and Cordyceps is one of them. Now, the interesting thing, though, is that Cordyceps sinensis was originally the first Cordyceps that really started getting studied. And they started finding, there's different species and subspecies and genuses of all these different mushrooms, just like there are with various animals and insects and all that. And Cordyceps sinensis was broken down into, at first, 3 different species: CS1, CS2, CS3. But then they started looking at this CS4 because it looked like it was easier to grow, easier to control and everything. And I'm going to say CS4 in quotes. And the research showed it was very hit or miss. There was some research that showed, especially when it comes to like the endurance and the VO2 Max stuff that we talk about, where how much oxygen can my body utilize to get the job done and support my muscular system. And so some studies showed great success. Other studies showed nothing. Like there was some stuff that, there's some immune system benefits, a little bit, there's an antioxidant benefits, but when it comes to endurance, how can it be hit or miss? And it turns out that there is another type of fungus that actually kind of piggybacks alongside cordyceps, but was getting misidentified as cordyceps, and it isn't really cordyceps. And I'm probably butchering this pronunciation, but it's called Paecilomyces hepili. And this form of fungus is actually oftentimes misidentified as Cordyceps sinensis. And when that was being used, and so our theory is that when it was being used in the research, this mushroom, which does have good medicinal properties, does not have the endurance boosting properties because it doesn't have the cordycepin. And that is the active constituent that's inside of cordyceps. Now, we as the scientific community really started discovering this when we were able to start doing DNA barcoding and DNA verification and analysis, and the scientists realized, oh my God, this stuff is not cordyceps. This is something else. And they figured out, like, okay, this is Paecilomyces hepili, and this stuff is not even like in the family of cordyceps. But they can sometimes like grow on each other. It's like these fungi have their own little world war going on, of course, and just like a lot of the animals and trees and all that stuff. Anyway, but it is not cordyceps. So, two options. First off, kind of disregard some of this research and start a whole new branch of research, or let's get rid of the whole mess and start with something else which actually has more of the active constituents anyway, and that is Cordyceps militaris. Cordyceps militaris is completely different in terms of not looking like Paecilomyces hepili, and it also has more cordycepin as it is. And cordycepin seems to be the active constituent, like I said, which leads at least to a lot of the different benefits, but especially these increases in VO2 max that a lot of people are seeing. So it's also, and this is part of the reason why the CS4 version, of Cordyceps sinensis was starting to get used, is because it's easier to grow. Part of the whole mushroom biome is that we don't fully understand it, and there's very strict requirements for them to grow properly. We can't always do that in a greenhouse or in a lab. So the CS4, which ended up probably not being Cordyceps, that is easier to grow but a little bit less trustworthy. Cordyceps militaris, also easy to grow. It thrives in environments that we can control, and then we can harvest it easier too. So all in all, Cordyceps militaris is the cordyceps that I think is worth looking into, and that's where, and we have a whole article on this whole kind of situation called the Cordyceps Crackdown. We recently updated it because there is some new research on PeakO2. So anyway, Cordyceps militaris is the version of cordyceps that's worth looking at if you're an endurance athlete or you're looking for any type of anti-fatigue, all this breathing stuff that I've been talking about, the lower heart rate, that kind of stuff I truly believe is going to be way better if you look at Cordyceps militaris. And that is our first ingredient in PeakO2. So unfortunately, with the whole PeakO2 blend, I guess that it is a proprietary blend, so we don't know what exactly is in there. And I just grabbed Primaforce, which is owned by Mike McCandless. He's the one who sold the Scivation to Nutrabolt, and he kept Primaforce. I think we still have this on PricePlow too. But so if you want to try it solo, PeakO2 is right there for you. If you want it to have it, have it in a tasty amino acid beverage, of course, then Citrus Passion Fruit Xtend Elite, of course. So, but I pulled this down so we could look at the proprietary blend inside. And in a dose, typically the serving size is 2 grams. If you go high dose, you can probably get some effects a little bit quicker. And that's what one of the studies showed, like 12 grams a day. But then you're doing 6 scoops of this stuff in a day, and you're basically out of it in 10 days. But that gives, the new research shows that is quicker on the effects. But then also 4 grams a day was the original study, and 2 grams a day is the new study showing that if you take your time with 2 grams a day, it's perfectly fine. So with these other mushroom extracts that are in PeakO2, first off, we don't know, I'm actually hoping it is mostly Cordyceps militaris. We don't know the doses of them. So a lot of them kind of have the same kind of family of properties, but we can quickly roll through them. But Cordyceps militaris is really where the story's at. In terms of the others that do provide benefits, you're going to recognize one of the other ingredients inside. So anyway, the first one inside is reishi, and reishi is often used in higher doses at least, or if you're going to use it solo, it's often used for anti-diabetic properties. It helps with blood glucose control. There may be a little bit of research on improving cholesterol levels, although the whole cholesterol thing is arguable as it is. But typically, making the bad cholesterol go down, the good cholesterol go up. Reishi has shown some promise to be able to do that. As far as endurance activities go, I'm not sure. I mean, maybe it can make you a little bit more insulin sensitive, which is good for if you're trying to like burn a little bit of fat and you're working out like hard, you're doing high intensity interval training and all that. That's great for insulin resistance. I'm not sure if like for the endurance athletes who are already like good with that. I'm not sure that matters, but it might improve your ability to take a little bit of carbohydrate, which is important for a lot of the endurance athletes. Many endurance athletes, and even though I'm a low carber in general, and endurance athletes, it's great to be fat adapted because you have all the energy you need on your body. But when you need to make a race finishing move, and there's studies about this, nothing beats carbohydrates. It's a performance enhancing drug as far as I'm concerned. And reishi also, I didn't mention, additionally helps out with sleep as well. So if you're looking at all these sleep supplements you're talking about on this channel or on the PricePlow blog, and nothing's getting it done for you, hey, maybe it's a mushroom your brain wants it after all. So reishi is the one that has a little bit of research for the sleep. Next up, of course, is our favorite King Trumpet. Now, King Trumpet, honestly, it's also known as, I think, King Oyster Mushroom or Oyster something mushroom. And there doesn't seem to be a ton of research on it, except for his most awesome name. But King Trumpet is, once again, good with the cholesterol levels and basically used as a general antioxidant. As far as the endurance benefits go, I'm not so sure like there's really anything too crazy to it. Now, number 4 comes Shiitake. You may have seen this on certain menus and everything. A lot of this stuff is edible, of course. You're not going to put an inedible mushroom inside of the product. So Shiitake also has some anti-diabetic properties. There's some cardiovascular benefits, so maybe those do contribute to some of this VO2 Max or this heart rate stuff that I've been talking about. It would be cool, actually. I probably should try some, Cordyceps Militaris on its own, but I already have success with the PeakO2 blend. I'm not going to be messing around with too many mushrooms, except for the next one, maybe. So anyway, you do have some of the anti-diabetic properties and some immune support on top of the cardioprotective properties. Now, the immune support, when you're talking about immune support, sometimes the C word comes up if you start digging around. Can't make any claims. I don't want to talk about that too much. But a lot of people use different mushroom blends to fight cancer as well. This is definitely not marketed towards that or anything, but a lot of people do swear by certain mushroom extracts and helping alongside of everything else that their doctor is helping them with, including the chemotherapy and everything. So we try not to talk about that too much, but man, when you're researching these mushrooms, that stuff just keeps coming up over and over and over. Now the question is, do the anti-diabetic style properties have something to do with it? If this can maybe potentially lower your blood sugar, is it really, a function of that? And maybe improving our mitochondrial health, is it more important? So is it really the mushroom or the effects from the mushroom that are then helping the effects? Anyway, we're not here to talk about that, but it does keep coming over and over and over. There's just so many different plethoras of health benefits. Like, I've talked about sleep, cardio protection, talking about cholesterol, talking about anxiety. But what about the brain game? And that's where nerve growth factor gets enhanced by the lion's mane extract. Now, we talk about this a little bit more often because this is a up-and-coming nootropic supplement that, it increases nerve growth factor, which allows your brain to generally operate a little bit better, but it really works with memory. So increasing the ability for you to create new memories and to recall those memories. Lion's mane is an incredible thing. We're starting to look at a lot of these different nootropics that have benefits with this nerve growth factor pathway, let's just say. And so lion's mane is the main one that people talk about. A lot of people are getting into this game, go right into the lion's mane. Hugely beneficial for that. Now, is it beneficial for endurance? I'm not so sure. And finally, last but not least, or maybe it is least because it is last, is turkey tail. Now, this is just another good immune system booster one. It's kind of where you see the C word come up once in a while. And it's got generally good antioxidant potential. So turkey tail is used for certain things that we're not going to need to discuss here. And it's last in the blend. It's a 2-gram blend. So honestly, I don't know how much turkey tail is here. And to be quite frank, I wish PeakO2, I wish Compound Solutions would open this blend up. I would love to see turkey tail pixie dusted. Yeah, and a lot of people are gonna get mad if I say that, but what I'm trying to say is I want more Cordyceps Militaris. Don't be wasting my time with turkey tail. I don't need to worry about antioxidant activity. I want the endurance and the anti-fatigue effects, and they mostly come from the Cordyceps Militaris. So the whole PeakO2 situation really began in 2016 when a Scivation funded study came to light. So I do need to state that I believe it was funded by Scivation, and they showed it was done at 4 grams a day. And that was one of the first pushbacks. And we're going to get back to why, I already mentioned that there is a successful 2 gram per day study as well. And so let me just read it off real quick here. So chronic 3-week supplementation of a mushroom blend at 4 grams per day, that mushroom blend of course being PeakO2 per day, may improve VO2 max, increase time to exhaustion, and augment peak power during high intensity aerobic exercise. A blend containing Cordyceps militaris may be an effective method for enhancing aerobic performance and delaying fatigue by improving oxygen kinetics. I guess that's what I was feeling. This could have positive implications for maintaining and improving training volume, especially in endurance athletes. And that's basically what I was kind of getting at before. Just because you could breathe better doesn't mean anything. You got to do something with it. And this is all about more volume, really. So if you got the time to do it, then this is a good idea to do it because it'll help you, hopefully help you last longer. Now, I can tell you that there is a little bit of beta-alanine in this supplement as well, but I know because I could start to feel it. But and that's also a similar kind of play. Those ingredients aren't going to build muscle. They're like endurance-based gains, but they're going to hopefully enable you and your muscles to last a little bit longer in order to take on the volume to go and build muscle. And so a lot of times it becomes the volume game, like I've said, and many of us don't have the time to be in the gym for 3 hours a day, but you see some of those guys who are in the gym for 3 hours a day, time and time and time again, taking long sets and lifting heavy when they can. Well, they often do have great gains, but so this is kind of that. And like those triathletes out there listening, cycling takes a long time to train, and the longer you can go, it seems like that's where the guys do better and better. But yeah, it takes time. If you got the time though, might as well throw some PeakO2 at the problem. Is my take. You're already spending so much money in terms of time. What more is another $30? So. That's my take. Now, one of the things that these studies kind of show though is that this doesn't work as well with elite athletes. This is really, I think, better for getting average guys like me, average to above average, to back into a higher performance layer. But if you're already like a top 2% athlete in your field or whatever, in your age demographic, I'm not going to really push a PeakO2 supplement because the studies show that it really was more on the beginner to medium intermediate level athletes where the data was best. Of course, that was 4 grams a day, and that was like basically having to drink like 2 scoops of Xtend Perform at the time, Scivation Xtend Perform, in a day, and that was pricey. The tub came with like 44 servings. So what I wrote in the blog post at that point was, the happy medium, go longer, but use like 1.5 scoops. Well, now the good news is that Compound Solutions kind of caught the feedback, and they're like, all right, well, let's see what happens if 2 grams a day, so they did a 2-pronged study, and this is where it's cool. 1 week at 12 grams a day of PeakO2 had great benefits, and I'm gonna pull that up right here. That was the high dose group, 7 days versus placebo at 12 grams per day, but then more realistically, 2 grams a day for 28 days. And that's really what's in a lot of these supplements, and that's what we can start to base some claims on. Now, these weren't like ridiculous gains or anything by any means, and again, it was with the more average to intermediate level athlete. But what they noticed in that study, and this was a study published in 2018, following up after the 2016 studies, they noticed what I had already noticed, and that the high dose group had significant decreases in submaximal heart rate. And the way that they saw the subjects improve in time to exhaustion is basically they have them do an all-out pedal test and see how long they can go before becoming exhausted. And so it's mostly, like a lot of cyclists should be excited. A lot of these studies that we do on endurance is easiest to measure on a bicycle. It's more dangerous to do in the pool. It's tough to do, it's same thing with the treadmill. But the cycling, that's where you can hook up all sorts of gear and everything and notice how much oxygen they're taking up, how much they're respirating, and of course, how long they're going and for how fast. So a lot of them are done on the cycle. What was cool about this, though, is that it was a significant increase in the amount of time. We're talking about an extra minute before they had to cut the resistance. So in that low dose, 2 gram per day group, we had an increase in time to fatigue, so it took longer to get fatigued, a significant increase in the VO2 peak, and a significant decrease in blood lactate levels. So for the muscle trainers out there and the bodybuilders, the weightlifters, there could be some benefits to that, especially if you're going on like a little bit of a tear with the higher rep sets. I think that's where you're going to get the most benefit. Like if you have a high volume kind of day or month or whatever, to be prepared for that, maybe dosing up on a little bit of PeakO2 could help, but I don't think there's gonna be any acute benefits like that doing it that quickly. So that's what's cool though, is that people no longer felt that they needed to take 4 grams a day, although you probably will get there a little bit quicker. 4 grams a day, the study worked in 3 weeks. With 2 grams a day, it takes a full 4 weeks. With 12 grams a day, it just takes 1 week, and then you're gonna start seeing benefits. So basically it depends on your palate, your budget level, and how much time before that race. Because I've been there before where you're like, okay, I got this race coming up in 3 weeks and I am willing to spend $100 or so to throw pretty much everything I can at it. Well, if you're ever in that situation, and I don't think you should get yourself in that situation, but it happens, then PeakO2 is definitely something that you add to that stack. And now you know what I'm talking about for you endurance athletes. You got like an open water swim race coming up and you're kind of getting nervous and you're not so sure. Well, that's when you start pulling all stops. You start tracking your macros like a maniac. You start, really hitting the prehab and the rehab properly and making sure you're all ready to go. And then you're also looking at your supplement stack. PeakO2 is absolutely, definitely, I would say, is one of the first ingredients that I would put into that stack, knowing this and knowing how it makes me feel personally. So, okay, this video has already run pretty long. What I think we should do is separate out and maybe make another video on the new Xtend Elite. But really quickly, to tear through this label, we do have the 7 grams of branched chain amino acids. You have 2.5 grams of glutamine, and that's made it through from the old formula. Now, glutamine is really popular for recovery. I'm not the biggest fan of it myself, but a lot of people demand it and they swear by it. And endurance athletes can easily handle a small blood sugar spike that I always sometimes complain about. And then you do have, like I said, I felt it on my neck or whatever today here. I'm feeling it on my arms actually today, and my neck. And my legs. It's only 1.6 grams, a half of the clinical dose for the day. So if you're throwing everything you can at it, you're either gonna have to do 2 scoops of this, or you're gonna have to find a little bit of beta alanine elsewhere, such as in your pre-workout supplement, or just add a little bit more powder yourself if you have it. It's more like a crystal than a powder. After that, we do have the electrolyte blend and this is an interesting one, citrulline nitrate, which is going to be a nitrate-bound form of L-citrulline, which also has so it's like a double whammy on the nitric oxide boosting, and there's going to be some endurance gains there. Whereas we did lose out on a little bit of ashwagandha from the old formula, and the ashwagandha is great for reducing cortisol, but it was only 125 milligram dose anyway, and we like 300 to 600 milligrams. It doesn't taste good, so you know what? You can get an ashwagandha capsule and plug that gap if cortisol and sleep, and you're just dragging, and the testosterone feels low, and you're fatigued and everything. Then that's good to add back in as well. But in general, we're excited about the PeakO2 here. I'm glad that they came out with a follow-up study. I like doing stuff with compound solutions because they put out good blends. I do wish it was not a proprietary blend, but there's not much we could do about that. Either way, the feedback has been great on PeakO2, and I do enjoy it immensely when I know to use it regularly. And if I got a race coming up, this is, like I said, one of the first things in my stack. So thanks again to both Compound Solutions and Xtend or NutriBullet for sending on over those tubs. They're much appreciated. I think we got a couple of giveaway contests to do with Xtend as well, so I'm gonna have to email them a little bit and we'll get it going. But anyway, sign up for the alerts on PricePlow.com/Xtend. We'll send you notifications when those giveaways come out. We'll hit you up when there's a price drop or when there's new products, because Xtend's been pretty busy lately, and I don't think that's gonna change. Unfortunately, we don't really have a Compound Solutions deal alert kind of thing, but if you follow our blog, you'll know when we write about PeakO2, and we post a blog post nearly every day, so check it out on PricePlow. Follow us on Instagram. I appreciate all your time and listening, and you can check out the citations that we have in the blog post that's linked in the description. Subscribe to the channel, much appreciated. Hit the bell if you want to get notified for these epically long videos that keep coming out of this channel. And until then, we'll see you next time. My name is Mike Roberto. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.
Welcome to PricePlow.